Welcome to ¿Qué Pasa? HSIs, a podcast dedicated to everything Hispanic serving institutions. I'm your host, Dr. Gina Ann Garcia, bringing you the news on what's happening in HSIs. Join us as we explore the history and evolution of HSIs, culturally relevant and liberatory practices, current and emerging research with HSIs, and the policies that shape servingness.
Saludos, HSI familia, and welcome back to ¿Qué Pasa? HSIs. Today, we are talking to Dr. Tina M. King, who serves as president of San Diego College of Continuing Education, where she oversees and advocates for nearly 30,000 students. Prior to her role as president, she served as assistant superintendent, vice president for student affairs at Southwestern College, and as the student affairs officer at California State University, Fullerton. She's had many other highly impactful roles working in every sector of public education in California, most of which have been either HSIs or minority-serving schools, colleges, or districts. Dr. King's degrees have also been conferred by HSIs, including a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Studies with a minor in Pan-African Studies and a multiple subject teaching credential from California State University, Northridge, and a doctorate in community college leadership from California State University, Fullerton. Dr. King is a transformative educational leader whose vision is guided by the core values of inclusive excellence, equity-mindedness, and institutional responsibility for student success. She is a tireless advocate for students and educators and is extremely passionate about the work she does. Y'all are in for a treat with this episode. Presidenta, Doctora King, I'm so excited to have you here today on ¿Qué Pasa? HSIs. I'm big time fangirling and feel honored to have you stop by the pod and rap about all things HSIs. But first, we're going to hear about you. So let's go ahead and just start with your servingness journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garcia, for having me here on the ¿Qué Pasa? HSI podcast. It is truly an honor to be a guest today, and I'm equally fangirling about you, about being able to talk to you and to share a little bit about me and my journey. I'm a very, very proud Afro-Latina woman born to a Black king. I always say that. I emphasize on a Black king, a father, and a Mexican mother. My mother is, and I do need to share a little bit about my background. My mother, and she's an immigrant from Jalisco, Mexico, where she migrated with my grandparents who were farm workers. My mom did not have the opportunity to complete high school. She's the oldest of 18 siblings, same mother and same father. Yes, that is 18, 1-8. And at the age of 30, she, with 5 children, of course, myself, she went back to school to a non-credit college, a program at LA Southwest College to earn her high school diploma. And then she continued on and earned her manager certificate at the same college. And with that, she was able to use that as an opportunity for her to become a cafeteria manager, where she's worked for the last 3 decades. And this year, I'm very, very proud to say my mom will be retiring. And I always tell people retiring with a 401k because that's important, right? That's right. And she's retiring after many years of service. But my mom practically raised my siblings and I alone, the 5 of us. My father was in prison until I was 26 years old. And I share my mom's story for many reasons. One, to provide insight on what my experience had to be like to navigate college and what my road looked like. And not because my mom did not love me and she loved me with every fiber in her, but my journey was very different given that she didn't have the tools to support me with the navigational piece of college. And so I share that to give a little bit about my experience with college. I grew up in the inner city of Los Angeles, very, very proud of that. And every school that I attended, it was schools of the students were communities of color. Like many inner city Latinas, I did have some support navigating educational systems, but not a lot. No one at home who could help me with the FAFSA or how to fill out an application. And, one of the things that my mom could not give me that piece of the educational piece, like I didn't go to college writing camps or even to fill out the application. I didn't have a counselor who was there to help me, but my mom would always tell me, you're going to go to college, mija, and make me proud. And it was her sharing those little things or telling me, you're so smart and I love the way you write. I wish I could write like you. And I use that because while she couldn't give me the formal navigational capital, she gave me other things, right? And so it was really a friend of mine whose mother dragged me to an educational fair at Cal State University Northridge. And thanks to her, she walked me to this educational fair, drove us there. It was about 2 hours away from our home. And I stumbled across an EOPS table. There was just an outreach table there. And what drew me to the outreach table is because it said free or something to the line of free and we got money. So I went straight to this educational table, and it was because of the ELPS program and the amazing counselors who helped me navigate some of the barriers that I was facing. I ended up going and excelling in college. And I attended both CSUN and West LA College at the same time because I became a mom in undergrad. And I was hustling to provide for my son. I earned my bachelor's degree from Cal State University Northridge, one of the largest HSIs in the California State University system.
Go Matadors!
That's right. Y'all can't see this, but Gina's over here pumping me up. Look.
Yes.
And then I received my master's degree from USC and a doctorate of education from Cal State University Fullerton, another very proud HSI institution. So, to give you some of my background in the context of my educational journey with an HSI, that gives you a little bit of context. My servingness journey really began as a middle school teacher. Once I left, of course, undergrad, I knew that I wanted to work in education. One, because I was a mom and I was trying to figure out, how am I going to navigate even to prepare him? Right. And so I wanted to go to communities that looked like me. I grew up in the housing projects in Los Angeles, and I wanted to be able to support and pay it forward and pay it backwards and do everything that I could for those who look like me. So I began as a middle school teacher in Compton Unified School District, where more than 70% of the residents are Hispanic and 25% are Black or African American. I was teaching in practically Watts. The middle school that I taught at was a block away from the housing projects, not the housing projects that I grew up in, but very similar community. And then I later transitioned to the community college system and non-credit education. And largely because I was very inspired by the impact that my mom received through non-credit education. And I recognized how non-credit opened the door for her. It changed her life. And I was fortunate enough to serve as the first director of institutional research and planning at a continuing education community college, North Orange Continuing Education. And later on, I transitioned from the non-credit side to the credit side, where I became the Assistant Superintendent and Vice President of Student Affairs at Southwestern College, which is an HSI in Chula Vista, California. And so I've been blessed to serve as president at San Diego College of Continuing Education for the past 18 months, close to 2 years. It'll be July 5th officially. And I absolutely love it here. I love being a part of a team working to empower our students who are overwhelmingly students of color and come from the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, the way I grew up, right? And some of the hardships that I endured, and my siblings and my mom. And so, we have a diverse body of students, and we have amazing leaders here that support our students. And so, that right there alone has drawn me to San Diego College of Continuing Education because of the service. I'm also an adjunct professor. I teach at San Diego State University, which is also a Hispanic serving institution. And one of the many stellar programs is their Pasa program, which is a program geared to master students who are going into student affairs professions. And so I again, that's another act of service. I work really in depth with my students. We talk a lot about special populations, about removing barriers. How do you support our students that are undocumented, students who are immigrants? How do we support our students who are Black, our LGBTQIA plus students, our Native American students? And so I see my acts of service in my role as a president, in my role as a professor, and to be honest, in my role as a mommy. And so I think, that is a full whole lot of me in service to close it up.
Yes. Thank you for all of that. And thanks for bringing your mom into the pod and your son, right? It's a family affair up in here. And that matters a lot, right? That a lot of who we are is like based on, who is around us and who we're brought up with in our families and chosen families. So thank you for sharing your beautiful story with us. Let's go ahead and get into San Diego College of Continuing Ed a little bit more. Just start by telling us a little bit about what makes the college unique in the larger landscape of higher ed, specifically as a non-credit institution.
Yeah. So our San Diego College of Continuing Education, our vision is clear. We are the leading innovative adult education institution that transforms our students' lives every day. Our roots go back to 110 years, where we were established in 1914. And our students attend classes for various reasons. No two students are alike. Some of our students have never completed high school. Some of our students have stopped out and they're returning to receive a high school diploma. Some of our students are ESL and they take our ESL and citizenship classes. And some are working towards getting a college degree and preparing to transition to one of our 3 credit colleges. So San Diego College of Continuing Education is within a multi-college district, San Diego Community College District, and we have our 3 sister colleges, which are our credit colleges, Mesa College, City College, and Miramar College. And so many of our students come to San Diego College of Continuing Education. For one, it is 100% free. For 2, we do not require residency status. And so what that means is, unlike any of the credit colleges, they do not have to showcase anything to do with their residency. They can come to our college and solely get the education that they need, the language acquisition, and and for many of them, they want the tools so that they can either go into the workforce or so that they can transition to continue their educational journeys. Again, we're cost-free career training. We help our students move into receiving and a lot of our students want to go into the workforce, where we actually help them with job placement. So they'll take our pre-apprenticeship program and then we place them into a unionized job. Or they'll take our information technology course and we place them into a cybersecurity job. These jobs are 6 figures and come with unions. And so our college is beautifully unique and positioned to do exactly what it's designed to do, is to fuel the economic mobility and to fuel the economy. And the other piece to this that I didn't talk about, Gina, is in addition to helping our students get placed into jobs and helping them with their educational aspirations, we also support them, the whole being of our students. We have a very robust wraparound service. We are so excited. We just released, for the first time in the California Community College system, we just released this beautiful program where they receive free rides to any of our 7 colleges from their home to the campus and back. And so it's almost like Uber or Lyft, but we do it with the United Taxi Workers of San Diego. We wanted to do something that was homegrown in the community that also supports a lot of the individuals who drive taxis. They are the community members. And so that service is there, like many other services that we provide to support our students' needs.
Thank you. That question honestly was a little bit self-serving because I needed to understand exactly what y'all do, which as somebody who studies higher education, right? That's what I do through and through, understand sort of the bigger landscape of higher ed. Even I was like, okay, well, this is interesting, right? A College of Continuing Ed, what exactly do y'all offer? So thank you for giving us that like overview, which then leads me to my next question, which is about HSI and disrupting HSI a little bit. So according to your website, your Latinx enrollment is 34%, making you more than eligible for HSI enrollment. However, the federal definition of HSI is for degree granting institutions only, making you ineligible for federal designation and funding through the HSI program. So for those of us that do HSI work, obviously this is my core being, my core identity. I argue all the time that the federal designation does not make you an HSI. Getting an HSI grant does not make you an HSI. What you do and the services you deliver and the embodiment of servingness for the population, that is for you, 34%, and probably even higher. We know people don't always check the boxes or whatever. And also the way you describe that also, people might not even identify at all, right? If they're non-citizens. So talk to me about that, like as far as like your thoughts on you being an HSI by enrollment, but not ever even being able to apply for that designation, and or does it prevent you from even having these conversations?
Dr. Garcia, you are spot on. I love, love, love what you said, that it's not because a federal definition has designated you an HSI or even the number of students you serve, because if you do not serve them to their full needs, you're not doing any justice to these students. And so HSIs are at the forefront of efforts to increase educational access and success for the nation's Hispanic population. And that is exactly what we do at the College of Continuing Education. We are, in fact, an HSI. At the College of Continuing Education, we're doing exactly what has been outlined in the definition for an HSI. We are although we're not, officially HSI designated, we have an impact. I would say our students, we serve about 20,000 students annually, unduplicated headcount. And you're right, I really think it's closer to 47% just because we've done our own internal data. But what we see on MSI is what, of course, is reported to the state chancellor's office. But that's another issue. And you brought that up, that goes to data. But again, more than 1/3 of whom are Latinx or Hispanic are at our college. And one of the things that I also like to point out is that we did an economic impact survey report, and this report was done specifically for our college. And what they identified is that we contributed $209 million to the regional economy. What that means is students who complete our career technical education courses, and when they look at what jobs they're placed into, it's $209 million, and that was for one academic year. And so I say that because when we talk about what the designation is for educational access and success of an HSI, we are absolutely that, because of that economic impact and, of course, what that means for the students that we're impacting. We reflect the value of being an HSI in our hiring of diverse employees that reflect our student population. We have designated intentional programs and resources specifically that cater to our Latinx communities. We have a phenomenal immigrant support block program, and that program really supports students, our HSI students, and not just our HSI students, any students who are in the category that need that support, from legal services to counseling services to applications to transition, so that they are truly successful.
Absolutely. 100% retweet all of that, reshare, whatever it's called now on X.
On X.
Re-exit. But yes, that's the whole thing, is like this idea of servingness is like, it's so much more than the federal designation, right? And that has to be, when you look at your population, you're like, this is the population we're serving, right? Mm-hmm. Even if the federal designation went away, you're still serving the population. Or in your case, yeah, without the federal designation, this is your population. One of the greatest tensions, however, embracing an HSI organizational identity is the false perception that you no longer serve other racially minoritized students. This comes up all the time. As someone who spends a lot of time with HSIs, people are concerned that now we don't care about nobody else. In what ways do you see HSI and servingness aligning really with your own racial equity work, and specifically with the goal of serving the most minoritized students you are enrolling, who are also facing great inequities?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that important question, because as president of San Diego College of Continuing Education, I can tell you that everyone working at our 7 campuses is committed to daily student success and community enrichment. I will say that it's our program that we designed specifically to support our Hispanic students, that we're now modeling that exact program to support other student populations. We will be creating a Black student success program, a Native American student program, an LGBTQIA+ program. And I say that because oftentimes people think, oh, if you have a program that's specifically geared to targeting one special population, only that student population receives the benefits. That is not true, right? That's a false misconception, because we use those best practices as ways to enhance other student populations. And let's be honest, if one of our students is thriving, then many of our students are thriving. If we identify the lowest student and we put in the support systems and mechanisms to ensure their success, then other students will benefit too, because now we know how we can support other students in that have the same barriers. The other thing I'll share is that a lot of our students they may not fall in the category of Hispanic or Latinx. They are from other countries. We have a large number of Haitian students who speak Creole, who speak Spanish. We have a large number of Southeast Asian students, our students from all over the world. And when you see the students together and helping one another, they're supporting each other, not because of your race, not because of what country you came from. They're helping them because they see a student very similar to them that need the navigational support. And so, we serve everyone through an equity lens. We leave no one behind, no matter their background. For us, it's about understanding our institution's mission, the students that we serve, and addressing the needs that may have to allow them to continue on their educational pursuits. And again, I talked a little bit about some of the one of the programs that we have for our basic needs. And I'll share that we have SDCCE Cares, and that program is specifically designed to support students who have barriers such as transportation. We help with hotel vouchers. We place our students who are unsheltered, and we have a large number of students who have basic needs. One of the things I'll share with you, Gina, our students did a survey, and what we found out is 47% of our students make less than $5,000 a year. So we were able to use that data to work with other community partnerships, create partnerships so that we can support our students, and not just one particular student body, but our entire population of students.
1000%. Yes. If you find a good way to serve a group, it doesn't mean that now that group only gets it, right? But it's wild. People get really caught up in oh, we can't be Hispanic serving, right? Then we don't serve other students. And it's just this having to unpack, right? And you just unpack the ways of yeah, you can serve a group and focus on that group. That's equity work, right? Elevate the equity focus on a group that really needs some extra support, but doesn't mean that now everybody gets left behind, or that we don't learn, right, from some of those best practices. And thank you for bringing in even the conversation around some of our immigrant students from different places, right? That's another way to think about servingness, is we can absolutely serve people. Language comes up a lot in HSI, and I'm there's lots of languages, not just Spanish. That's one, but there's lots of languages, right? We could bring it in language. I work with one campus, and they're we have a huge ESL program, and they're not considered HSI, right? They were really concerned that they're but they're not part of our HSI numbers. I'm but it doesn't mean that you're not serving that group of students really well, right? Or that you can't be thinking how you're going to strategically serve that group of students. So it's really complex, right? But it also doesn't have to be that complex, I think.
No, I think you're spot on too. One of the things that when we talk about inequities that have existed, nearly 70% of students who submit a support request from our basic needs, which we call as SDCCE Cares, they're earning, like I said, less than $5,000 a year. We don't go in this application and say, are they specifically a part of this population, et cetera. We go in there to see what is their socioeconomic status and how can we remove a barrier. But again, a lot of the ways that we've been able to receive these dollars or these funding, it has been because of this amazing program that has been set up to support our HSI, our students that are Latinx, Hispanic, et cetera. And so we've leveraged that to create other programs to bring in the funding.
Yes. So if you were going to advocate for a state level HSI policy for California, how could that policy be drafted to include SDCCE?
Yeah, honestly, quite simply, if what I would say is to recognize that adult non-credit colleges such as San Diego College of Continuing Education have everything that an HSI does except for the HSI designation. I would say including non-credit in the designation is critical because non-credit is the beginning of the pathway for thousands of students. We have a large number of students that, again, come to our college because they want language acquisition. They need a different type of support. They want to go into ESL. They want to go into these different certificate programs. And to be honest with you, Gina, it also boils down to time. Sometimes they don't have the luxury of going 2 years or 4 years before they can make the money that they need to support their family. And so if I was to say in regards to a policy, it would be to include non-credit students in the equation because non-credit students bring in students that we need to support. It's free, but also because our colleges, again, do not require residency status, we allow students to come in and get the education attainment that they need. And so this gives students, again, the opportunity to come to our school to take our citizenship program, our ESL courses to gain the language acquisition. And you talked about the language acquisition piece. And sometimes students just want to feel more competent in the area that they're studying. We have math courses, we have other courses. And a lot of times I hear students say, I took it at this college and I came here and this professor was so good, I feel good. They'll come into our tutoring lab and get the support that they don't feel that they can get at their college. And so it would be, my initial point would be to reconsider the HSI eligibility for colleges that offer non-credit, similar to SDCCE.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it would also capture a lot of the community colleges. Yeah. Right. Because there's the community colleges, obviously, all of your sister community colleges, right, in the whole system offer non-degree seeking courses, right, and offerings for people that people take advantage of. That's part of being a community college, right? Yeah. Serving the community. So I think there's a lot for us to think about. For those of us that are thinking about what would a state, then there are some of us that are really thinking about what would a state level HSI policy look like, because almost all three systems are HSI systems at this point. Even the UC, the University of California, is really striving to be an HSI system as well. Campuses like mine are holding us back, but we'll get there. slowly we'll get there. But I mean, it's a statewide conversation at this point, and it has to be. So these are the intricacies I think we need to bring into it, which is why I'm so glad you're here providing some thoughts on this. So you're known for being an equity-minded educator, for leading with care, for building collaborative relationships towards racial justice, and for always smiling in your inspirational videos. I noticed that. I watched a lot of videos. I was like, you're so welcoming, even in your videos. So talk to us about how you lead through a lens of social justice, liberation, and racial equity, and why do concepts such as these matter, right, in our community colleges and in our HSIs?
Yeah, I love this question, Doctora. As educators, as leaders, we have to be very conscious that race does matter when it comes to educational outcomes and attainment, which is why, as president, I must lead with that lens. In everything that we do, I have a critical lens to make sure, are we meeting equity outcomes and advocating for and to create programs and systems that help our students succeed rather than hinder them. I mean, in every single policy, if you talk to anyone on this campus, at this college, within this district, I don't just look at inequities for our students, I look at inequities for employees as well. Do we treat our classified professionals like we treat our faculty, right? And why? Why do we not, right? Those are some of the things. And so that's not on the basis of race, but even do we treat all of our employees? Do we make sure that we retain our Latinx, our Latin employees, and our Black employees? Yes, we get them in the door, we onboard them, but what do we do to retain and make sure that they're here in 4 to 5 years beyond their tenure? All of these things, right? And, I'm laughing a little bit at this question because I smile because I feel so blessed and privileged to represent this amazing student and the students and this college. When I look at the diversity and I see this college as a full circle for me, I shared my mother's story and how it was a similar college that gave her the opportunity. This woman who did not have a high school diploma, who did not have what many people would consider, she didn't have the skills, and she, in terms of her having these degrees, et cetera. And she came to a school that gave her an opportunity that opened up the door, and indirectly it impacted me and my siblings. And so I get to the chance to work at a college that supports our students in a very different way. The other piece to that is, I try my best to humanize myself for my students. I'm not pretentious. I try my best so that they can see me just like them, right? Like if it's, every time they see me on campus, I'm smiling when they see me. And it's not because it feels good, not because it's just the way it looks, it feels good. I love to see our students, and I love what we do here at our college.
Thank you for that. So there are a good number of college presidents that listen to the podcast, a lot of high-level administrators. So for those folks that are listening, because I honestly think it's folks like you, it's folks that are really leading the colleges that can have the biggest impact on whether we do equity work, social justice work, HSI work, whether or not we do servingness. The people that are leading are I think some of the most important actors, right, in this work. So what advice do you offer those folks who are listening, possibly in their car right now while driving to work? What kind of advice do you offer?
Keep doing the good work, the good trouble, the important work, building partnerships, allocating resources towards HSI efforts, and being humanistic for our students. And most importantly, I tell myself this every day, and remember, we work to serve the students. So make sure that all that we do is reflective of that. I think one of the other pieces, as a president, we oftentimes get caught up in the bureaucracy. And so it's important for us to step back and maybe read the 4 agreements, right? Like, don't take this personal, so that we can remind ourselves why we're in these roles. And our role is to truly be the voices to the voiceless, our students. And so for those that are listening, I would say, don't give up the fight, keep doing the good work. When you said that, I kind of chuckled. You said it's been slow, but that you're going to keep pressing, keep holding the institution accountable to do the right thing for our students.
Yes, exactly. You got to stay in the fight, got to stay in the struggle. It's going to be a long struggle, but that's part of this work, right?
Right.
So thank you for that. You are the first Afro-Latina president to lead one of the 116 California community colleges. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, right. All right. So how do your racial, ethnic, gender identities inform your leadership practices?
I would say, as an Afro-Latina woman, I know firsthand how difficult it is to keep going when the system is set you up to fail, right? So that has informed my leadership practices in intentionally removing barriers for students and understanding how education can change one's trajectory, as it did for my mother and for my family. So when I see my admissions and records team members at the front, I always remind them that they are so important, right? Their job is beyond just this application. You really, truly can make or break a student's success, right? So when a student comes to you because they've caught the bus or they've taken a train or whatever they did to get here, they are taking the first step to enter our doors, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we support them. And, growing up as an Afro-Latina, it's always the notion of being one or the other. And, I've always been put into this box of having to choose. And as I've continued to ascend in my journey, I oftentimes felt like it was this pressure to be, you have to be Black or you have to be Latina, right? You can't just be both, right? Like, people could not accept that I'm a proud Afro-Latina, and I take that with me everywhere, because if I denounce one, I'm denouncing a part of my mother, a part of my father, right? And so, as I've ascended in my journey of my career journey, I have become more emboldened and embrace how powerful it is to be Afro-Latina. It's a beautiful thing that I come from two, I think, amazing cultures, and I embrace my curly hair that gets bushy at night, or the fact that I get to straighten, or I embrace that my hair might be straight tomorrow, or that I might have on some ceramic earrings, right? I show up in all of my cultures so that other people can feel comfortable to show up in theirs. And I embrace my olive brown skin that fluctuates throughout the season, throughout the day, right? And so for me, being an Afro-Latina is so important that I wear this identity in many ways, but that you see it in every space that I show up in.
Yes, 100%. I love it. Let's hope you are not the last Afro-Latina president leading the California community colleges, but you are paving the way. We see you, we honor you for that, right? That you are showing up as your full self, because it matters. It matters to a lot of us, right, to see that. But at the same time, you started to get into this a little bit. I want to also go down the path and grapple with some of the challenges, right? There's a lot of conversations going on in HSIs around, do we fully embrace our Afro-Latino students, our Afro-Latinx students, and even grappling with anti-Blackness, right, within the community. How do we work with that? How do we acknowledge it and also get past it, right? How do we move through that? So talk to us more about some of those. You said, right, specifically like this, you have to choose one over the other, right? What other challenges have you had to overcome with your identity?
Yeah, I'm not going to be dishonest. I think that has been the hardest for me at times. This has been my experience since birth. Literally, my grandfather, my mother's father, who is a very proud Latin, he passed away, Mexican man, and could not accept that we were half Black, right? And so that was very, very hard. And so I felt anti-Blackness as early as I could remember. And I've always had the struggle, even with family members saying words to describe me and my siblings in ways that is not okay, not acceptable, right? And so in spaces that I work in, I've experienced anti-Blackness, and it's disappointing because these are individuals. When you think about educational systems, this is supposed to be think tanks. We're supposed to be the most progressive, one would think, and it shows up in those spaces as well. And I think one of the ways that I've oftentimes felt that is this, again, going back to what I said, when you think about these beautiful learning communities that we create, I love those learning communities, the Puente de Moja, all of these learning communities, but there oftentimes is not a community that gives us the multicultural lens. And I think about those students who have to choose either or, right? And that's just the way it has been set up. And so there's an opportunity to create intersectional cross-cultural activities with these different learning communities or different groups, et cetera, so that students like myself who are biracial, that come from different cultures, do not experience that. But when I go back to the anti-Blackness in the Latinx community, it is real. It exists. And I think we have to center ourselves on pedagogy of the oppressed, because that's oftentimes when I think about where we are. When you think about Paulo Freire and the work that he did, he oftentimes talks about those that have been oppressed, when they become the oppressor, how much more they oppress. And so if that makes sense, you think about the white supremacy and everything in the educational system being built on this whiteness. And that is what we have defined as greatness. And it's unfortunate because what that does is we are all everyone's trying to become closer to this acculturation of what we have been taught or brainwashed to believe is the right. And so unfortunately, it causes this division of we don't want to be like Black people because the media has done that. And I mean, this goes back, and Doctora, this goes back from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration that has created this negative connotation about Black people. And this creates the anti-Blackness in the Latinx community, and not just the Latinx community. We have to call it out in all of the communities, right? When we talk about these little slurs or slangs that come up about the skin color, even in our own community, that's anti-Blackness right there. And I think, for me growing up and having and seeing this and having to live this, at some points, there was shame for me. I think I too pulled away from even my Latinx heritage because I didn't feel accepted, right? Never feeling enough, trying to fit into this ideology of being superior to Blackness. And it caused me to pull away at times. And so, to that point, anti-Blackness is real, and there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and not just the Latinx community, and all of the communities. And creating these multicultural opportunities and programs or intersectional programs for our students is important at the colleges.
Oof. That isn't a whole word, a whole bunch of words. Thank you for speaking to that, because it's a hard topic to have to think about, but we need to be honest about it, right? And we need to really think through. I mean, I think a lot about HSIs and our responsibility in this, right? Like we need to talk about it, right? We need to bring it up. We need to have these deep conversations around anti-Blackness, around anti-indigeneity, even within the Latinx community, anti a lot of things, right? We could come up with all kind of things that HSIs cannot reach this point of justice and liberation without us having these conversations, right? Because they're real, right? So thank you for that. And you said that, this is real, right? I'm not gonna tap dance around it. It's absolutely real. It's absolutely happening. And we need to talk about it. We need to get into it. We need to dig into it. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, which, when I saw the recent case with Claudine Gay's resignation from Harvard, I immediately thought of all the presidents who I admire, the women presidents, Latina presidents, Black presidents, Afro-Latina presidents, who I get the honor of, having in my own circles, my own professional and social circles. I immediately worried, right, about y'all, what is higher ed doing to us, right? If we know that we're not really taking care of women of color who make it to these leadership roles, right? And can actually do really good work, but are faced with pushback for a variety of reasons. So what sort of political tensions do you and other women of color presidents in the California community college system have to be cautious of as you're navigating, your spaces?
Oh, this one right here is, first of all, the forces behind Claudine Gay's resignation is just disappointing, right? And the time that it took for that resignation is telling. The second thing, when I think about what us as women presidents have to be cautious of, a couple things I think about. We have to be cautious of a lot of things. But the systems that are at play to oftentimes remove us, to destroy us, to harm us, to stop the great work that's being done. And we have to be cautious that we don't allow those forces to win, because who loses are students. The other thing I think about when I read a lot of what was said about her and what was happening to her, what we saw or what we know of is just the tip of the iceberg, right? And she is just one of the millions of stories that we have not heard. And so as the political tensions, we talk about the political tensions, and what I would say is a couple things we have to be cautious of is that we don't allow these stereotypes, these different labels that have been placed upon us to become true and factual. And you see what she did, she removed herself from that situation. And there's these different things, incompetent, all of these things, if we're not palatable enough, and if we're not doing what right, and we're not the bobblehead that has been placed there to do for just to be a checkoff box, then we can see what has happened. And again, her story is not the only story, right? We've seen other women presidents as of late who have lost their lives and have, and it's been heart-wrenching to see Black women presidents and what they endure. And so I think a couple things we should be cautious of is one, not believing it when we hear it. When Black women or women of color presidents in the California community college system express that they are experiencing something, that they are being treated a certain way, not to race light them, right? To not make them feel as though they are, not to make them feel like they are doing something that's wrong. It becomes all these other things. Oh, they were incompetent, their work, there was challenging, etc. And so I think those are a few things. And I think the other thing is to make sure that we, as women of color, that we support one another, right? And so that we create systems and structures, whatever that may be, with one another. If we're in the same system, that we reach out and we support one another so that there is a safe space, there is an empowering space, there is a space that you can go to share so that you can know how to navigate these unfortunate situations.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack, and you just gave us a lot to think about. But there's so many layers. And even when you said the forces, right? The forces behind all this, those forces are deep structural forces. that you're forced to navigate, right, on a pretty regular basis. So thank you for going down that path with me. A couple more things I wanted to talk to you about is governance, which I think is a little bit nerdy, but I love to talk about governance because I think it matters a lot. And I think when I get the opportunity to talk to somebody like a president, somebody at high levels who has to operate in many governance spaces, right, and understand the way decisions are made in colleges and universities in more intricate ways than and most of us, right, can even understand the decision making. But I talk about governance as so essential to the HSI work. Like we could build all the programs and support services for our students. We could change the curriculum. But if at our deep core, we're not actually making decisions for equity and justice and servingness and with our students at the center, I argue we're not gonna move the institution, right? It's not gonna fully get to that place of HSI. So talk to us a little bit about that, because you obviously get to be in a lot of those decision-making spaces. What aspects of governance do you think we should be thinking about when it comes to making decisions around servingness or equity and justice?
Yeah, I think building out the long-term capacity to implement, sustain, and institutionalize HSI policies are critical. It's not enough to, and I love governance too, by the way, it's not enough to give these one-time lump sum of dollars, right? It has to be intentional long-term capacity efforts so that we can sustain these programs that are being built to support the students' needs. And, in regards to moving the institutions, yes, it is critical that the policies and the practices and the procedures, et cetera, that we're watching what's happening and that we're a part of those conversations and we're at the table and we're advocating so that they're reflective of the students' needs and the institution's needs so that it best serve the students that we are here to serve. Oftentimes I've had folks joke, oh, advocacy, you're always talking about advocacy or policies and procedures and assembly bills, et cetera. I talk about them so much because so many people that look like me don't know enough about them, and they're not at the table, and they're not in DC. And we know the saying, right, that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, all of those things, and that's true. And so I would say that it has to be intentional and long-term efforts to ensure that the funding is there so that we can continue to support our students. And those things are critical and important.
100%. Ooh, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Actually have never heard that, but you're right. That's true. Oh my goodness. But how do we get more people to the table, right? I think that's the hardest part. And even like, I wrote an article about decolonizing faculty governance structures. And that was a big piece of that article was like, the people that are making the decisions continue to be the same ones over and over again, right? And they're not the ones committed to equity. They're not the ones committed to HSI and servingness. They're the ones that are committed to power, right? And want to keep having
their agenda.
Yes. So like, that is like, I mean, that's huge, right? But these are the deep things that like, yes, you start like, some people say their HSI work starts with like the low hanging fruit, right? Like, okay, start with the low hanging fruit, but you're going to have to dig into some of these deeper sort of structural issues to actually move, right, the campus. At least I think so.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, really quickly to where you're going, it is, the faculty is a 10+1 at faculty, right, body, but we need faculty that are equity-minded and have the critical lens that are going to go in there and look at the curriculum, that are going to look at the curriculum process that is outside of the administrators. That's outside of our lane, right? And so it's that we have individuals that are equity-minded and that are looking at the governance structure from our academic senate, from our classified professionals, so that there is equity embedded in all this work. And a lot of times we find that, there are folks who want to do the work, they don't know how to do that work. There are some that are resistors, right? And so it's important that we have individuals that are at the table, that are recognizing and are following and tracking the policies and the procedures so that our students and our employees, students of color, HSI, et cetera, that they are continuing to be served the way that they should be served.
Yes, 100%. Whew, we've covered a lot of ground today. I appreciate you coming on to the podcast today and sharing all this good information with us. The final question that everybody has to answer before they get out of the podcast is the most important question, I think. So how do you respond to the question, ¿Qué pasa, HSIs?
Final question. Wow, this hour went by pretty quick. But there's so much we cover, but I can end with there's always more that we can do to reach and center our students. Always have your ear on the student and community needs and be a fearless advocate for student success and servingness. That's truly what I would say. I always think about John Lewis and him talking about never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. And you think about the work that was being done in the movement of civil rights, right? And how we have evolved, but it was the good trouble, and they had to be fearless leaders in order for us to be here today. And so I would say to center the students, and even if you feel the resistance, keep going, keep pushing, and holding the institution accountable.
And that's what's up. Thank you, Dr. King, for spending some time with us here today on ¿Qué pasa, HSIs?
I want to say really quickly, Dr. Garcia, thank you so much. I'm so honored that you invited me here. I think so highly of your work. I'm always excited to see you at all of these different spaces in the community college system. And I really, really appreciate the work that you've done to center HSIs, to center our Latinx students, but really to give us the strength to be able to advocate at our institutions by saying, Doctora said. And so I just appreciate you. I appreciate your research, and you too keep doing the good trouble.
Awesome. Thank you.